What's up, guys? Welcome to the second tutorial of your PhoneGap series. Now, in this video, I am going to show you a detailed example of the Config.xml file and explain to you all the various parts that makes up the file. If you will recall, I mentioned in my previous video, that the config.xml is actually the heart of your applications. Now, I am going to show you why. I have my root folder, which is my www folder. This is the folder which I would put together and pack and upload to PhoneGap to get my app package. Now, let me mention this. You can give this folder any name that you want when deploying it to PhoneGap build. But then, while still on the desktop in the non-deployed mode, I would advise that you keep this name as it is. And just to save your head, still keep this folder, the name as it is, whether you are working on it on the desktop or you are packaging it for PhoneGap build. Great, let's jump straight into it. Okay, now notice that I have a couple of stuffs over here. I have some folders, assets, CSS, images, JS, resources, and I believe that you understand what these folders stands for and what files they contain. Okay, they are not really my concern for now. I am interested in this file over here, the config.xml file. Okay, so I am actually going to open this config.xml file, and I'm going to do this in Visual Studio Code. So I'll right click and I will I'll open my Visual Studio Code. You can use whichever editor that you like, but I will prefer to use Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I'll open the folder. So I'll go into the folder that contains my app, and I will grab my config.xml file. Okay, so I'll open the folder within Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I have my files now within Visual Studio Code. As I mentioned, you can use whichever text editor that you are comfortable with. The most important thing is to get this config.xml file. So I will open it. Great. So now I have my config.xml file. Okay, now I'll just go through this file. So basically, the first part just contains. So let me go through this. So the XML version we are using is currently 1.0. Now, you don't really have to worry so much, especially because you'll be generating this config.xml file most of the time automatically, and you wouldn't need to generate it from scratch. So you'll be using the command line or the PhoneGap desktop, and it's going to give you the latest version. Now, this is the ID. Now, notice that I have this ID over here. Now, if you've ever published an app to the Play Store, then you notice that Google requires that every application have a unique ID. And depending on what you've been doing, you can have a format. So I normally maintain this format where I have something like com, then this could be the name of organization, and this could be the name of the application. Just make sure that this ID is unique from app to app. And this is the name of my application, and this is a description. I actually kept the name as the same as the description, but you can add as many information as you want. This is the email address of the developer or the company, then the website. Okay, great. Now let's look at the content over here. That is the SRC, content here, that's this index.html. I mentioned that every PhoneGap application needs an index.html file. If not, PhoneGap will not work. So once your app has loaded, PhoneGap will look for the index.html as the first file that it want to access. So you want to make sure that you have this index.html file. So it could be probably a login interface, or it could be the main application. Now we have these preferences over here. Now there are a couple of things that you would want to specify for your app. Now this is the PhoneGap version, and now PhoneGap keeps on updating their version just to make sure that it is in line, and it will conform to the Play Store, the App Store standards for publishing apps. So you generally want to keep to these versions, and you can update your own application to match up with these versions from time to time. And they normally announce these versions on their official website, and also on the PhoneGap build. Whenever you publish your app, they also indicate you the version that you should use. Now, if at a point Google Play decides that they want all apps to match up to a particular version, or Android version, then you have to try and then update this. So I have some other preferences: splash screen delay. So I have a value of 9. This means that I want to have my splash screen stay for about 9 seconds or so before I have my app open. And we have this load time out value over here set. So if after the splash screen finish running, if the app is still not displaying, then it could mean that there is an issue with it, and the app will want to throw into an error. So we have in-app browser storage, error URL, target device, status bar, overlay, status bar background. So for your app, you want to have a status bar background of this color, and you need to check out this to make sure that it's matching with your app interface. So when building an app, you also care about the user interface as well. So you have all this information. Now these are actually links to your icons. Now you need these two: the main icon and then the main splash screen. So this is the main icon that your app will use, and this is the main splash screen that your app will use. But depending on the layout, so whether the app is in portrait or landscape, you want to use the appropriate icons and then splash screens. And you have these for permissions as well. And I talk about plugins. Plugins are great to extend the functionalities of your app. So you could use a number of plugins. Now, by default, PhoneGap will install the core plugins. So these core plugins are plugins that are maintained by PhoneGap, and you can it's installed by default, and they are test. So these are all the Cordova core plugins. And notice that I have a third-party plugin over here, from OneSignal, which I use to send push notifications. And one thing we want to do is, when using third-party plugins, you really want to understand how the plugin. So you have to read a lot about the documentation of that plugin. And all these plugins, you can read more about them on NPM. So it's actually managed on NPM. Yeah, and lastly, I talk about access. So notice that we give our app access to some some other apps. So you notice that I have access for WhatsApp. So what basically it means is that within my app, I can launch a button or a link which can open WhatsApp. So telephone, SMS, geo, mail to. So all these are access that you are, and you can restrict your app so that your app is not allowed to access certain origins. Okay, so that's it for PhoneGap Config.xml. I hope you've learned a lot, and don't worry so much if you don't need to know so much about all this. You will learn to understand them. You know more about them when you actually start building apps with them, which we will be doing in our next video. So guys, thank you so much for being part of this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and click on the like button. Thank you, and see you in the next video. Have a nice time. Bye bye.